Justin, Hideo Kojima had his podcast that he announced. When was that? What was that for? It was a Keeley show, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't that at Game Awards? Like, he comes out there and is like, I got a podcast. And I'm like, great, but what about your Silent Hill?
It was over was it the Summer Game Fest?
He like came up and like thought had like a speech or whatever that they were doing this, or maybe it was something else.
He showed up and he was sitting in front of like a giant like sound mixer as if like he's recording a podcast in like a recording studio. Although it's Hideo Kojima, so he could do that probably.
Do whatever he wants.
The podcast is called Brain. What is it called? Brain Structure. With Hideo Kojima. It's on Spotify. It's a Spotify original podcast. He did an episode talking about Bluebox Game Studios, which he has never, I don't think, publicly spoken or really like publicly addressed the whole connection to him with Bluebox Game Studios and abandoned. If you need a quick refresher and maybe are tuning into our programming for the very first time, Bluebox Game Studios, who we talk about frequently, is working on a game called Abandoned, which a lot of people, when they first announced it and showed it off, seemed to think that it was a fake studio created by Kojima in the same vein of Moby Dick Studios when they were promoting Metal Gear Solid 5. A lot of people thought that Bluebox Game Studios was a similar sort of fictional studio made for Hideo Kojima returning to Konami to make PT or Silent Hill or whatever people wanted that to be. And at this point it's pretty clear that that's not the case. That's just straight up not the case. But no, Hideo Kojima finally spoke on it in the most recent episode of Brain Structure. Justin, have you listened to this episode?
I have not. I feel like I've missed out on a huge moment for Bluebox Game Studios. I feel like I'm a fake fan. I feel like I need to delete the real-time experience app from my PlayStation 5 right now.
Have you not?
No, I'm waiting. One day I'll just come up there and it'll be like updating and I'll be like, yeah. Besides, how else are they going to mine that cryptocurrency if I don't have it installed on my PlayStation?
I guess you're right. Justin, I'm surprised that you didn't listen to this. I'll say this. It's 30 minutes. It's a pretty quick and easy listen. It's basically just Hideo Kojima talking to Jeff Keighley. They like talk about how it's like the Game Awards episode or something like that. But like if it were about the Game Awards, I feel like they would have talked more about the Game Awards. Like I thought that they were going to be saying like, oh, and we're also announcing the nominees for something here. No, basically it's only the Game Awards because anytime Kojima says anything, Jeff Keighley interrupts and is like, this is exactly like my experience with working on the Game Awards. I'm not kidding. Hideo Kojima talks about how he was accused on the internet of being the assassin of, what was his name? Something Abe? Former Prime Minister of Japan. You remember this?
Yes.
We talked about it on the show. He talked about that, like saying like it was really hard because like this fake news just spread and like I didn't know what to do about it other than just like refute the claim. But most people don't hear the follow-up. They just hear the initial headline. And then Jeff Keighley, after hearing his friend talk about how he was, people on the internet thought he had murdered a human being, said, yeah, this is just like the Game Awards where people think that we're going to be announcing certain games and we're not. And it's like, okay, Mr. Keighley.
It's like he's got one thing in his life that he just keeps bringing up.
Yes. It's like, have you ever seen, I think you should leave. There's an episode where they do a skit where they're having an intervention in this woman's house, and the house is Jim Davis, author of Garfield's house, and it's like a Garfield themed house. And so every single thing that they talk about, like she always has to bring back to the Garfield house to the side. It was like that. Well, basically Hideo Kojima talked about his relationship with Bluebox, basically saying like, I didn't know them. I didn't know what was going on. Like people thought that I was involved, even though I wasn't. And he was basically just saying like, yeah, it's just so crazy about, you know, the fact that everyone like connected us and all this sort of stuff. And Jeff Keighley was also like, yeah, it was just so crazy that like we all sort of got like roped into this. And listen, they do make some interesting points about like the idea of like clickbait news and stuff like that. And the rumor mongering, I think that has really taken hold of the games industry. But Jeff Keighley and Hideo Kojima are like, yeah, I have no idea why people thought we were connected to this when all we did when this was like at its peak was tweet about it constantly and like say really cryptic stuff about PT and whatever. It's like, perhaps you're to blame partially. I'm not saying like they definitely leaned into it is what I'm trying to say. And Kojima ended up saying that like people keep sending him pictures of Hassan. Like they still send it to him and his colleagues. And he said, like 20 a day, it's really quite a nuisance, which sounds significant.
Polite way to say that. It's just a bother,
yeah,
It's quite the nuisance.
20 a day. That is a lot. That is quite a lot. But to be honest, he really didn't say much other than just like, yeah, they thought I was a part of this thing, but I wasn't. And he's like, I don't really know why I thought that. And it's just very easy to see why people thought that, especially because they bring up later, like I said, Moby Dick Studios, this fake studio that Hideo Kojima created to promote Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, the reason why people thought you maybe did that was because you did do that. Like, like you have a history of doing that, and it's not that outlandish to think that you would do something similar. He basically refutes that by saying, like, but like my fans should know me and that I would never do the same thing twice. And it's like, I guess, yeah, maybe we should all thought of that, but I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. No, I think, I just think like at a certain point, a lot of this could have been solved if Kojima was just like, from the beginning, no.
Because he never just came out and said, I am not involved with this.
I forget the initial tweet that he did, but he seemed to be like flirting with the idea a little bit. Like nothing to like quell the rumors of it, which would have been a really easy thing. I don't know if there's legal implications of this or anything like that, but like just no.
Well, I think he leaned into it and whether he like implied stuff or not, like I think that it's wild for him to be like, yeah, I don't know why people thought this.
Did you see the tweet that Bluebox posted about this?
Yeah, they tweeted for the first time in fucking forever.
Mm-hmm.
They quote tweeted a Game Informer article that basically just like talked about, summarized this podcast episode. And so they tweeted out, we would like to thank at Kojima.Hideo for addressing the conspiracies openly. It has been a burden and not cool for both fans and developers. We hope everyone can close this for good. We're working hard on Abandon, and we would like to thank you for all your patience. Followed up by saying, also, we ask fans to stop harassing Hideo Kojima regarding Abandon messages. This is not acceptable and it is not entertaining. So there you go. I mean, they haven't tweeted since what? April 3rd.
Yeah. I think I still go back to this whole Bluebox Game Studios thing. I wish it was more organized chaos than just ineptitude from Bluebox Game Studios. I wish some of these rumors were true because it would make a more interesting story than just people out of their depth with this. But the internet's a crazy place, and this stuff probably happens a lot with different types of news, not just in the video game industry, but with anything like this. And, I think it's good. And I think, part of the reason too with this is like at a certain point, this was great for Bluebox Game Studios to get this kind of marketing push, to get this kind of hype around it. The problem was they just couldn't follow through with it because they weren't equipped to follow through with it. And, I think what was better for Bluebox Game Studios, Kojima being like, get away from me, or him just being like, yeah, I wonder, maybe with this, something like wrong, you know what I mean? Like, I think like the marketing thing would have been cool for Bluebox Game Studios if they would have come out with a game. They didn't.
Right, and that's the thing though too. Like they all, like Bluebox Games Studios also leaned really heavily into the conspiracy stuff. And so with both of them leaning into it together, like I think just really did a bad job. Like it was just a cocktail for failure and this whole thing to blow up in their faces. And so for both of them to do that, and then for both of them separately to be like, yeah, I don't know why people thought this. All we did was play into it like constantly all the time. It's like, it does not take that, like, think about it for like a second, guys. I'm sorry that like you guys got caught up into this, but like you have to accept that like it was not just the fans that did this. It was not just them. Like you guys were both stoking the fire, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And now there's egg on both their faces.
Yeah.
Or a box.
I feel like
head.
not really Kojima. Like Kojima tends to like. I think he's going to bounce back from this just fine. Not that he ever really took a dip, I think.
I mean, where's his Silent Hill game?
He also talked about, they talked about that rumored, like, Death Stranding 2 that they talked about for Stadia stuff. I guess the problem was they talked about, like, it's so wild that, like, all of these things, like, there's just all these rumors all the time. And then I feel like they didn't like ever definitively answer any questions about the rumors or anything like that. They basically just said like, it's all nonsense. And it's like, wait, what specifically are you talking about? Like, if you want to clear the air here with any of this, like, please do. But like, you have to understand that the reason why people don't like, he basically says, Kojima says like, no one ever reaches out to me to ask me about this stuff. And it's like, would you ever respond? I guess it's, you never know until you try, but
right.
He's a secretive guy. Like games are secretive, and he personally is a very secretive about his art and stuff like that, which I think is fine. But then to come out and be like, no one ever asks me about this stuff. It's like, sorry, I don't know. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
So there you go. They announced what's her name from Deadpool 2 is going to be in his next game. The girlfriend of Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I'm forgetting the character's name. Kyoko?
Josh Brolin.
Nope. Close, though.
Thank you.
I think her name was Kyoko.
Kyoko.
She's going to be in it alongside good old, what's her name? Elle Fanning.